Township of Hamilton Committee Meeting, Tuesday, February 19, 2019. Please stand for the flag salute. You okay?
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. You like to do the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by publication in the press of Atlantic City on January the 10th, 2019, and the Atlantic County Record on January the 16th, 2019. Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mr. Kurtz?
Here.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Silva?
Here.
Mayor Shanker?
Here. We have a moment of silence for private reflection. Thank you. We have a guest presentation. I don't believe he's here yet, Phil? No? All right, he had a little problem with the car. When he gets here, we'll try and squeeze him in. Okay. Additions and deletions, a late agenda, we don't have any, Rita?
No.
Thank you. Early public comment on agenda items excluding items listed in public hearings. Mike?
No one to sign up there.
Thank you. We have no discussions. Move to 4, public hearing, adoption of ordinances. We have Ordinance 1896, 2019, an ordinance amending Chapter 170 of the Township Code to provide for assessment of fire prevention regulation fees for agricultural structures in the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic. This is a public hearing. Anybody in the public like to speak?
Motion to close public portion.
Second.
A motion is second to close public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. You have a motion to adopt?
I'll move adopt ordinance 1896, 2019.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? We have a roll call?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
B, ordinance 1897, 2019, an ordinance adopting a redevelopment plan for the entirety of the Township of Hamilton, a designated rehabilitation area. Phil, could you, just real quick before we open it up to public,
Certainly, Mr. Mayor.
just let them know where we're at with this too?
This is the follow-up to the rehabilitation area designation that the governing body made last year. The redevelopment plan itself is just basically checklist items. It doesn't make any changes to the zoning. It just covers all the requirements stipulated under the local redevelopment and housing law as far as items that you're supposed to address, even if it's just 1 or 2 sentences. Again, there's no changes to the regulations, and it will allow the governing body to make other further changes to items such as the tax abatement and exemption program, and in the future, if there's specific sites that may need other site-specific redevelopment plans, move forward with those at that time. Once the governing body adopts this, it still has to be sent up to the Pinelands Commission for their review and certification, which, since it's really not doing anything, should be pretty much a formality and be done relatively quickly.
Okay.
And Phil, once it goes to the Pinelands after that, then we were able to get some kind of public forum together to have this.
Oh, yeah. Actually, once you adopt it, we could
We
start
can
with
do it
public forum.
But sooner?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, great.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll try and do it in a couple weeks or so,
Good,
just get
yeah.
something set up here.
Very good.
Okay. I'd like to open this up to the public. It's a public hearing. Anybody in the public like to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
The motion is second to close the public portion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll make that motion
I'll
to adopt.
second it.
Second.
A motion and a second. Rita, could you give me a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Introduction of ordinances, public hearings, we have none. No awards, bids, contracts. Consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve items A through L on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. Personnel. Appointment of William Johnson as exemption and abatement officer for the year of 2019.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? All those in favor signify by saying... We'd like a roll call? Rita, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Approvals, minutes to the February 4, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it. Payroll and bills, bill list total, $2,476,646.22.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Rita, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Shanker?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Move on to reports. Mr. Administrator?
Nothing, Mayor.
Mr. Solicitor?
Question
Oh,
on the administrative
I'm
report?
sorry, go ahead.
The GIF webinar for cybersecurity. How does our security look? Having attended
I
that
think
seminar.
we're in good shape, I think.
We're in good shape?
Steve keeps
In
us-
your unbiased opinion.
Right. Thank you.
Well, one more thing. Under Phil's tutorial, the mill redevelopment.
Yes, sir.
What's the status of that?
Status of that?
Yeah, you're talking about the pre-application meeting and,
Right, they had requested the pre-application meeting with the DEP. Just this afternoon, got notice that that has been scheduled for March 26th up in Trenton. Basically, it's all, every possible department from DEP that may have an interest would be at that session. I'll be going up there for representing the township. I'll probably be taking Hannah with me. So there's some level of continuity to follow up on it. They may also have the Pinelands Commission staff there, hopefully so. This way they can get everybody's comments at one time.
great, I hope it goes well.
Good. Very good.
Just one more observation on the Conifer project. Note that we're talking about 79 school-aged children living in the 99-unit project. So there were a lot of questions about the number of kids. Now we know.
Anything else, Rodney?
No, that's all.
Anyone else? Questions? Mr. Solicitor?
I have nothing to report.
Good. Mr. Engineer?
Yes, Mayor and Committee, I have a few items. The first, I wanted to talk about Chancellor's Place and Atlantic Electric. 2 weeks ago, we had a number of residents from Chancellor Place come here expressing concerns about, the stormwater basins and the flooding on the properties and their basements. And a few days after the committee meeting, I went out and met three of the homeowners that spoke at the public portion. They were nice enough to really give me a full 2-hour tour of all the streets, all the houses, the bike path. So I'm really starting to get a good feel for what's occurring at Chancellor Place. They've been supplying me with marked up maps and photographs. Not that I could engineer them their situation, and I expressed that they need to hire their own engineer, but I've expressed to them that I can give them the benefit of my opinion and experience as to what may have been occurring since 2003. In the meantime, I also met with Atlantic Electric, Ken Mosca. We had a meeting there a week and a half ago, and I brought along a copy of Atlantic Electric plan that when they submitted for a site plan, And I marked that plan up, and I gave them the benefit of my suggestions on how they could start to solve their stormwater problem. And my opinion is they need to retain all of their stormwater on site. As you know, sometimes their lower basin, which is very shallow, overflows, it comes across 32nd Street, and it runs down a bike path on Chancellor's Place, which to the people that live in Chancellor's Place, they see that as a big problem, and it is somewhat of the problem. I think they have other issues at Chancellor Place, but Kenny Mosca and Atlantic Electric seem very committed to solving their stormwater problem. They've emailed me since that meeting, and I believe they're going to solve their problem. They don't want to cause any issues with our 32nd Street, where we just paved, or Chancellor's Place. So I believe they're going to solve that. They've been in contact with an engineer. They're hiring an engineer, and I think over the next couple of months they'll solve the problem. What they're asking from me is what types of approvals do they need, and I believe it could fit into, depending on what they want to do, an administrative approval, which would allow them to keep moving forward. The key there is for them to increase the stormwater basin volume, and that'll solve the problem. So.
Steve, if the electric company's remedies actually fix the problem where the water isn't running from the electric company over to that property, yet the problem still exists, that's going to let the residents know that there's something more involved with the property right there.
That's exactly the case. What my preliminary findings are that at Chancellor's Place, they've sent out a census to all the property owners, and they've color-coded the houses that have problems. Those houses happen to be, let's say, at the lowest point of their property next to the basins that are failing. So there could be more than, it might not be Atlantic Electric causing all of their problems.
Right.
Especially since 2003, some of these people have been having problems.
Having water, yeah. Thank you.
Were they
Did you,
receptive, Steve, to hiring an engineer to do some testing there to see where the water table is?
They are. They're open to that. They've been interviewing engineers. It seems like some of the engineers they've been talking to have already done work either on Atlantic Electric or their site. They want to go with somebody like a new, fresh approach, somebody that hasn't done any work on either property. So they're receptive. They want to solve their problem, and they were emotional at the last committee meeting, and they're still emotional, but they're starting to understand and study, and they formed like a subcommittee, and the communication has been really good. We're going to meet with them in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Great.
I was with Steve at the meeting with Atlantic Electric, and believe it or not, it was raining that day. I know it's hard to believe, but it was kind of nice because their basin that we're talking about was full and about to run over out onto 32nd Street. So it kind of put the issue right out in front. And Steve's absolutely right. We are looking to eliminate them from the equation so that we can get past that part of it and focus more on what the other problems are in Chancellor's Place. I also spoke with Marge Wilson, who is the representative of the HOA for Chancellor's Place, and she was very appreciative of what Steve's done, the fact that we move forward and we're trying to help out in any way we can, and she's aware that we can only go so far with this, but nonetheless, at least we can try and help them mitigate some of the issues. And she did say that they are in the process of getting their own engineer, and Steve has been gracious enough to do what he's doing to help them get a little bit of a start and kind of lay out a little bit of a plan for them. So thank you, Steve, for what you've done for them. They are very appreciative. So,
Steve, I was wondering if you noticed any improvements made by the individual homes where that could have affected the drainage. In other words, a porch, a patio, that type of thing.
There is one thing that, and it's probably hard to see, but the bike path that comes off of 32nd Street, there's about the first 10 houses have sort of dammed up their backyards. And what they've done is they've created sort of a canal where the water travels along past those first 10 houses, and where it leaves the path and goes to one of the residents, that's the house that's flooding. So they've kind of caused some issues for one of the, they've sort of changed the topography by damming the rear yards of these properties, and one person is kind of suffering from that. But I'll have a chance to talk to him about that when we meet.
Okay.
I have a few other items. Main Street, the manhole that I thought was solved a month ago at Linwood Avenue and Main Street started seeping again. I contacted the utility company with Verizon, and they stepped it up to the engineering department. Tom Reber met Brett and I last Wednesday. They've now supplied me with all of their drawings, which are very old, while those conduits went in, so I could see the diameters of the pipe and what the solution there is. And Brett agrees with this. Is there's a storm inlet that was put in on Linwood Avenue about 30 feet away. We would like to run a drain line, cut the road, install a drain line to our storm inlet on Linwood Avenue there. Two other things that are going to occur. There's two manholes there that need to be reset. The neighbors, and I've been in contact with the neighbors, Sue and Ted Marks and Guy Tunney, and every time a truck hits those manholes, they can feel it. So I've asked Verizon to reset the rims and to cut the asphalt. And when Brett was there, he had a very good suggestion. It's a brand new road. The road is going to need to be, the asphalt needs to be put down properly. We're going to need to make sure we, put that infrared the asphalt, in other words, to eliminate the seam that you would get on a new road like that. So as soon as the weather, breaks and asphalt plants are open, they're committed to do that work there on Main Street. So we'll try one more time till we get it. The next item on my agenda here is Lenape Plaza. About 2 weeks ago, I noticed how bad the road is coming out to Route 50, Lenape Plaza, McDonald's, the car wash. So I contacted each of the owners a couple of times. I haven't. I pulled copies of the surveys, the easement agreements, the deeds. I continue to contact the owners. I kind of hit a bit of a wall, so I called Bob Sandman late last week and said, I don't know what to do. I don't think we could send Brett out there to patch it. It's a private road. It's on somebody's private property. There's easements. So I turned it over to Bob late last week because I reached a level where I wasn't getting anywhere. The furthest I got was if you saw any spray paint out there, when I inspected, I was the one that painted up the roads, and I measured. One of the potholes is 7 inches deep. The other's 4 inches deep. So I got a phone call from Mary Luzitsky the other day saying, somebody got a flat tire and we need to do something. So I turned it over to Bob, and Bob's been helping me out with it. Bob, I don't know if you want to explain what you did from there.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, because I've gone around that.
We have adopted the International Property Code into our ordinance, and we have other ordinances where, for example, if the grass is high, we cut it, we lien the property. And we have developed by an analogy that we have the same right to do that here. So my office drafted a letter because the letter has to go from the zoning officer to the property owner. And that was submitted to Hannah, I think, on Friday. I don't know if it's going out yet. It has, Mike?
Yes.
Okay. So they have 10 days to repair. If they don't do it on the 20th day, we can go in, do our repair, and lien the property. The property is contained on Lot 5, which is the car wash property. Because the road is a private road with an easement going to Lenape Plaza and to McDonald's. So that letter went out. We put them on notice. We have done, all of us have done everything we could possibly do. It is dangerous. I've been out there and looked at it. And it's, ruining vehicles. So Steve and I have determined that it's a very unsafe, situation. And we availed ourselves to our ordinance and the code and took immediate steps to get it done.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
I just have a few other items. Just the construction projects that are going on, just Buffalo Pike, Outback Steakhouse, progress is up and down with Outback Steakhouse. Artist Walk, they continue to sell houses back in there. Welsh Springs Church is going to start clearing maybe later this week. And Hamilton Green, which is the next phase of the Hamilton Green project, you've seen it, if you've been on Cologne Avenue, you've seen where they've done a lot of clearing. One other thing that I've done is today I met with Phil and Mary Luzitsky. I gave Mary and Phil a copy of the draft letter to we have 60 privately owned stormwater basins in the township, and every year in March we send out a letter reminding the homeowners association and the owners that they need to have an engineering evaluation of their stormwater basin and submit it to the township. So being that the water table is so high and we have so many drainage basins and high water table, I thought it would be good to get this letter out to them sooner rather than later. So the draft letter is ready we have a listing, and Mary has labels typed for addresses and homeowners, and hopefully these will go out. I know it's a lot of work for Mary, but these letters should go out very soon, and we've given them a deadline of May 1st to submit their annual report on the private stormwater basins. The letter's a little more strict this year. When the DEP came down and visited us a couple of weeks ago, we talked about this letter, and they gave me a little stronger wording to use to the homeowners and the condominium associations. So, we're expecting them to do their evaluations. Chancellor's Place, that's one thing they'll need to do, this evaluation, and I'll tie that in when I have a conversation with them in 2 weeks also. So that concludes my report.
Question, Phil, does the evaluation have to be done by an accredited engineering firm?
It does. Okay. And one thing I noticed, there were 4 or 5 properties a year ago that were done by landscape contractors, and that's not permitted.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a question about the clear cutting, or the clearing for the, what is it, Hamilton Green?
Yes.
Are they, at one time I thought that for that type of development, they did have to keep some trees and...
They do. It's a very large property. There are...
Okay, so they're following that.
They're following that. That's the first thing we need to do, stake out the limits of the clearing.
Okay, good.
It looks pretty massive. It's 35 buildings, 220 units.
And as part of their approval process, they have a landscape plan in effect for that too.
They do.
Will there be an entrance or exit to the back off of Cologne Avenue there?
Yes.
Oh, there will be. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Move on. Before I move on to Township Committee, just want to make a public service announcement. The ethics training for tomorrow night, which is training for all elected and appointed positions in the township, has been canceled due to the weather. We'll probably reschedule it the next couple weeks if we can. Move on to Township Committee members. Judy?
Well, I was going to say, in my humble opinion, the weather has been very favorable on the weekend, which makes us all happy. But during the week, when there's been snow, I've had the occasion to take care of my grandchildren, which was another really nice thing to do. So, I don't know, up there, are you? I hope this snow is not going to be a huge snow. Do you know anything about?
I haven't bought it. Brett might know.
1 to 3.
I guess I won't have my grandchildren tomorrow then. Okay, well that's good. It's something that we can't control, but it is nice. So that's all.
Thank you. John?
I only have one comment. My understanding is that the Bank of America building was auctioned off today at 1 o'clock, and it was a bid process. I don't have too much information on the figures. They're going to release more information on the internet tomorrow. I'm hoping it was sold to a possible retail operation that we could use here in town instead of a professional office per se. But it's a nice property. I really would have liked to see our Municipal Utilities Authority, the MUA, go in there, but unfortunately, they didn't research that. And they didn't think it was something apparently that was feasible. Instead, they're going to locate out on Old Egg Harbor Road, which I think is a traffic issue with the sports field there, and bringing more traffic out to that part of the town. I would think that more diligence should have been paid to possibly look at that Bank of America site and how to drive in. They stated that the elevator would be an issue, but there are companies that could have put an elevator in there. But anyway, it's sold, and let's hope it's something that benefits our downtown area. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Roger?
Finance Committee has met a couple of times this month and probably meet again. And one of the things I was thinking about tonight was we need help from our schools. We need more than just them submitting a budget that raises taxes every year. They're having a meeting that was changed from Monday, February the 25th to Tuesday the 26th at 7 p.m. in the Michael L. Duberson Memorial Library located in the William Davis Middle School. I think people should try to attend it. Do you remember when the superintendent came here and he was pitching the bond that they wanted to go out for? And I saved that piece of paper. And one thing on the back was the tax impact. It says, due to the timing of the proposed referendum, the average homeowner will expect to see $130 annual savings while upgrading the school structure. I wonder if that's going to be true this year. We need to convince them, and everybody does, who lives in this community, they can't keep spending. It has to stop somewhere, but they have to do it in a judicious way. When you take 53 cents out of every dollar that comes in taxes in this community, and it goes to schools, don't misunderstand me, I believe we should have good schools and good teachers, but they're not getting all the money. The money's going for stuff that should have been done years ago, should have been done in a capital budget, that should have been laid out over time, and not with a $27 million referendum. Could you see what would happen if we tried to do a referendum that big in this township? You'd recall everybody sitting up here. So I think we should try to get as many people from the public out to convince the superintendent he's got to stop spending. That's it, Art.
Thank you, Roger. Rodney?
I'd just like to point out, for those who are interested, the Atlantic City rail line, of course, has been out of commission for a while, and right now it's about 8 weeks behind when it was supposed to reopen. Well, Assemblyman Mazzio and Armato are having a public listening session at the Atlantic City Rail Station in Atlantic City, and I believe it's tomorrow.
In the snow?
So anybody interested should look it up. Or call them and express your opinions about it.
Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you, Rodney. I just would like to add on to Roger's comments, and you know, his comments are well taken. Being involved with doing the budget for this town is very difficult. Due diligence, it's a little disheartening for two reasons. One, because we work so hard at that, and the fact that I'm a taxpayer is the other reason. But you know, I agree, we should have representation there at the meeting to make sure that they understand that we know they have needs and wants just like the town does, but they have to be as frugal as they can with those needs and wants. With that, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Anyone in the public like to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Michael Ryan. I live in the township. I live on Driftwood Lane. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I might be one of the few people in this room who have successfully litigated against Atlantic City Electric. And I want to comment briefly about my story. I would characterize two key moments in my almost year-long litigation against Atlantic City Electric. The two key moments were, number one, finding a clause in the New Jersey Administrative Code that requires Atlantic City Electric to deliver reliable electric to my house within 2 standard deviations of the state average. The second key element in that almost year-long litigation was a moment when we established that, yes, an administrative law judge can in fact fine Atlantic City Electric for failure to deliver reliable electric to my house in compliance with that clause in the New Jersey Administrative Code. That's my personal story, and I relate that to your stormwater management story that I heard 2 weeks ago, because that's the element that I found strangely missing. I didn't hear anything about where in your stormwater management plan somebody might have been violating, or B, what the fine might have been. That's, because of my story, that's the omission, that's the thing that I heard missing. Any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jim?
Yes, our school taxes are high because there are way too many school districts in the state, over 600. If we get that number all the way down to 150, our taxes will come down significantly.
I'll disagree.
So far, there are too many blue people and not enough red ones.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Sure.
Hey, Jim.
Anyone else from the public like to speak?
Move to close the public portion?
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public portion. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to adjourn?
A motion-
Second.
Motion to
Second.
adjourn in a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All
Aye.
those opposed? The ayes have it.